In this video, we installed the Lowrance Hook 2.5 sounder slash fish finder slash chart platter on a Hobie kayak, but this install video will help you if you're installing it on any kayak. So stay tuned. This is the Lowrance unit we talked about earlier. Today's project is he's going to install this Lowrance fish finder,
the Hook 2.5.
Hook 2.5, and he's gonna use the space that he created up front with that new hatch that he moved that's where the battery's gonna go.
Yep.
Right.
Battery's gonna go up front.
Cool. If you want to watch the video where Carrie goes through the install process of removing the hatch from the center, putting it up front, and drilling the hole, making a new hatch up front, and then replacing the circular hatch with the rectangular hatch like the one I have on my Triangular 14, then watch the video here. I'll put a link for it up here. I'm gonna have a list of all of the parts Carrie used to make this install, including the actual units and all the little accessory pieces that you kind of might forget to buy when you're ordering stuff that you will need for the install. So I'll have all that for you in the description of this video. A lot of this stuff is available at kayakfishingsupplies.com. Kayakfishingsupplies.com is basically the online home of OEX. Right?
Exactly.
Cool. Perfect. So if you see anything here at OEX that you want to get, it's also going to be available at kayakfishingsupplies.com. Big shout out to you guys. Thanks, Carrie. And
no
let's get going with this install, guys. So we're getting ready to start. I'm going to move this out of the way and go ahead and tell us what the next step is.
All right. So process we're going to do is, first thing we're going to do is flip the kayak over, and we're going to install the transducer on the bottom. Then we're going to flip it back over, come up to the top, and get the wire run through the transducer scupper hole. Put it in the wire cap, take it inside the kayak, and then run that line over to where we're going to mount the fish finder head unit, and then we're going to run the power cable from where the fish finder is going to be installed here up to the front hatch where the battery is going to be located. So that's going to be the whole process of installing the fish finder on the Hobie Compass Duo.
Awesome.
Yay, but it...
Oh yeah.
What's that?
This is gonna be a quick a quick unboxing of this thing. So
all right.
What's in the package? Go for it. Ooh, the head
Here's
unit.
the Lowrance Hook 2.5 head unit. The factory mount, which we are not going to use. The transducer and cable, which we are going to use. The power cable, which we definitely need to use. And the Navionics Plus chip, which we definitely are going to need. And then the mounting hardware bracket, we don't use it on the kayak. This is mainly for a transom mount on a boat. And then we definitely are going to need the fuse holder with the fuse to complete the install.
The Navionics chip, is that something that comes with it as extra? How does it work?
You can buy the Hook 2.5 as a base unit without a chip, or you can get it with the chip. This particular chip, the Navionics Plus chip, has mostly the saltwater and up to 100 miles inland, so it covers most of the coast and your freshwater lakes. So if you're in California, it's probably the only chip you're going to need. If you move to the middle of the country, then you're probably going to need to get a different chip.
Nice. So, do you need any adapters to make that fit?
Adapter-wise, no. If you when you purchase your Hobie kayak, it should come with a fish finder install kit, and there's a little packet of parts, which basically is there's two little pieces that go inside here that will mate up to the actual transducer. They also have a different set like this, which I guess is for a different style transducer. I've never seen what this one fits before, but these are the ones that I normally use. And then you have these little metal brackets that go on the outside like so. And then we're going to take this little... You caught me off guard, man. I wasn't ready for that. You take that, you're going to put this bolt through here, line it up.
It's like a GoPro, it's all the way through.
We're going to put this on here, and then we're going to put that on there and tighten that up, and that's pretty much the install of the transducer on the bottom of the kayak.
On the actual plate.
On
It's
the
like
plate.
a locking nut too.
Yeah, so, and this is a nylock, so I just got to get a screwdriver and a, I think it's a 10mm or 3/8 socket, and tighten this up, and then we're going to flip it over and put it down inside here and make sure we run the cable through without getting it bound up anywhere. That through, we got that tight. We're going to put this back on here. We're going to put the plate back on. What's that?
Old guy, so I had to throw on the sweater. Shout out to East County Bait and Tackle. Thanks for the sweater. Kerry's putting the transducer plate back on the hull. He's already done with that piece.
Putting the screws, putting the stuff back together, and then screwing it back together, and then feeding the cable back through the hull, through the scupper hole that they have designed for the wire to go through. And then once we get on the other side, then we're going to have to drill a couple holes. Cool. Basically what we're going to do now is we're going to take the cable that we ran up from the transducer and we're going to take it inside the kayak. So to do that, we're going to take the Hobie through wire nut here. We're going to drill a hole down in the kayak here. We're going to put the nut here, run this cable through it, and take the cable inside to get it over to the head unit over here. And then we're going to install the little grommet seal in this little location. You get a pack of those with the kayak, so it has different size holes to fit different transducer size cable. So we're just going to have to figure out which one fits it, and then we're going to run all that stuff through here, and then once we get that done, we're going to move over here and drill another hole to get this wire out to the head unit. Ooh, what?
What?
No.
Just a little what?
No. We had to move it because of that hull. The hull's got a misshape underneath there, so we just moved it forward a little bit, and we're ready to go to the next step. We ran the transducer cable through the wire seal on the top side. We ran the wire through the nut on the back side. We got the actual seal that fits the transducer cable, the proper size one so it won't leak. Put that in here. We got this, the nut installed all the way down, and then we put the actual nut on the back side and tightened it down. So this is what the finished install on this looks like from the top. Because we couldn't put it here in the normal location, we had to move it because of that hole. The hole's got a misshape underneath there, so we just moved it forward a little bit, and we're ready to go to the next step.
We didn't finish the install yesterday, so we're still here at OEX. I'm going to show you guys exactly how he routed the cable through from the transducer, and then we're going to continue the installation process for this Lowrance head unit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to explain it the way I saw it happen, and then Kerry can double check that I'm correct or not. Okay, so here we go. So the cable that comes off of the transducer that we put in the plate under the kayak basically pops up through this little scupper here. That cable then gets pulled up, and you have to, well, have to drill the hole, of course, to make the cable go back into the hull. Before you put the cable through the hole, you have to put the little gasket on there, and the gasket has to sit so that the flat side is on the hull and the little cup area, like little lip area, is up, right? So then from there, the plug and all the rest of the cable is fed through inside the kayak, and then from there, where does that go?
So that's where we're going to start next, and we're going to take the cable from the transducer, and we're going to run it over to where this customer wants the head unit, which on this particular kayak is going to be on the right side, right here, basically on this track. So we're going to take and we're going to drill a hole about right in this area to get the transducer plug to come out right here, so we can plug it into the head unit. And then we're also going to take the power cord plug and plug it into the head unit, and then run that wire up to the front hatch where the battery is going to be and the fuse. So that's where we're going to start going now.
Cool.
On this particular kayak, on the Compass Duo and on the Compass, the wire hole pass through. I don't know what they actually call this piece, but this is not drilled and it's not factory installed. So you have to drill the hole to install this piece to get the cables through. So on this, you have to use an 1 3/8" bit, which is this big guy, to get the hole cut. So a good way, I mean, it's right on the right on our bit, but the 1 3/8, you want it to basically sit inside this seal. So I know that it's the right size. I always double check the drill bit that's recommended to the actual part before I use it, just in case they somehow have a misprint in their directions, and then you don't drill a hole that's too big, and then you can't add plastic back. It's kind of hard. You can always cut a bigger hole, but you know, you don't want to have to try to make a smaller hole. That's a lot harder to do. So we're gonna line this up. I already checked on the back that the cable for the rudder up is not going to be in the way of where I'm drilling. The line actually runs down, so drilling up here high, I won't get this line, and then we will run the cable up through this hole. But first, we're gonna drill this hole. Now we get to fish the transducer cable from back there up to this hole. And when you're inside the kayak, what you really want to try to do is try to find a way to route the cable that it's not going to be in the way for anything you're going to be storing inside. And also try to get it to where you can tie it off to, say, a scupper plug or a scupper post, or anywhere that you could try to mount it to keep it out of the way. There's not really a lot in this kayak from this dimension. It's only about 3 feet. So we're just going to route it as best we can and keep it out of the way. How far is it?
Oh, nice.
This little piece is actually a grommet. And then with the Hobie install kit for the fish finder, there's all kinds of these little grommets that have different size holes drilled in them for different size cable.
Right.
So each one of these cables is a different size. They do have this piece that has a slightly bigger hole and a slightly smaller hole. So these two fit in there, and then once you put them inside this piece, it tightens them up, and then it'll make a watertight seal.
Okay.
So you need to put this on here, and the reason I have it kind of set right here is because I already talked to the customer, and the customer wants the fish finder to basically mount from here to here. He doesn't want to have to go up here with it, so he's going to keep it back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of get the spacing for the wire. So if it's sitting right here, the wires are going to come out. I'm going to give him a little bit of room, so if he tilts it backwards or if he goes forward, it's not going to pinch the cable. So he's going to have a little bit extra cable on there. So that's where I'm going to kind of preset this, and then make sure you take your seal. Again, it has a flat side, and then there's a little lip side. You want the flat side to go on first, and then you're going to thread that all the way over down here and get that ready to install this piece into this part of the through hole fitting, and then we're going to run these wires inside, and then we're going to screw this in, and then we're going to start working up towards the front. I added the power cable. It's going to go back inside here, and basically it's going to run kind of next to the transducer cable, but then what I'm going to actually do is the transducer cable is going to run towards the center of the kayak. I'm going to take the power cable and run it up the side, and I'm going to actually split it. There's really never been an issue where I've seen any interference with electronic as far as the battery and the fish finder readings on the actual meter. But if you can, try to separate the two. That way you won't have any interference with the power and your signal to the unit. Really isn't an issue with this stuff, but I always do it if I can. when I get ready to put the screws in and get this set, I just make sure that this is these are at the same length coming out, just so when I screw it in that it will bind up a little bit, and then that way I'm not trying to pull this, because sometimes if it's too tight when you pull that this seal can actually move a little bit. So I try to get them set as much as I can so you don't have an issue with this popping out. And then you have to take the screws back out, which they're small little screws, and you don't want to keep doing tapping screws in and out of the hull, because you can loosen it or strip them. One thing that you got to really keep in mind when you're doing this part of the install is the screws that you use to do this, they are extremely small. It's a little screw. It's, I don't know, this is about a 1/4 inch long, and it's a tapping screw. It's only got 4 threads on it. So what you're going to want to do when you're putting these in this hole is I don't set a pilot hole. I don't even pre-mark it. What I do is I just take the screw. It has a nice sharp point on it, and you put it where you need it. Put nice pressure and start turning it, and just make sure that you keep it straight and just turn it in. And what you want to do is you want to get it to go all the way, and once you get it down and you feel it get snug, just go a little bit more than snug, and that's it. Don't go any farther than you have to when you're tightening it down. If you do, it's going to strip out the plastic, and then you'll have to take that screw out and then put a bolt on the, or a bolt in with a nut on the backside.
How much past tight are you going?
On this, because it does have a seal, when you get it snugged up, you're gonna, if you watch the seal will actually move just a little bit. So when you're gonna feel it snug, you can go and you'll see the seal will actually bulge out a little bit and stop. If you go too far, you're gonna strip it. Right now we've fed the power cable up through, so I have the power cable right here, and then here is all the excess on the transducer cable. Very important, most of you probably know it, but if you don't, on the transducer cable, even though it is about 15 feet long, you cannot cut it. If you cut it, you cannot splice it back together. It will not work. So you have to leave this length, and then you just have to bunch it up and then zip tie it inside. Never cut the transducer cable.
So never splice it. Oh.
Yeah, or you'll be buying a new transducer.
I think that might have something to do with like the amount of like impedance in the length of the cable that the thing is calibrated for. So that's just a little side note. What's this tool called though?
That tool is called a "Let's fish my wires from inside the kayak" tool. So
awesome. It works.
Yeah,
It works.
and we have varying length of these depending on how long the kayak is.
Nice. Yeah.
So we have a few different ones to get to different parts of different length boats. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the power cable plug that actually comes with the Hobie fish finder install kit, and I'm just going to fish the wire from this hatch over to here. We're only going to need about 3 feet, so I'm going to end up cutting a lot of this off. We're just going to feed this kind of along the side and behind some foam that they have inside the kayak that's kind of spaces the hull. So it gives it support. So I'm just going to take it behind that, and then we're going to do the crimp, and then we're going to end up tying it off to this scupper post when we're all done. Fish the wire through behind the foam supports that are inside the hull of the kayak, and then now basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure I have enough length to where the plug will come out of the hatch at least 8 to 10 inches, so you can plug the battery in, and then you just set the wire back inside the kayak. You don't want to have it too short, and that just makes it a lot harder to plug it in and unplug it when you're getting ready to go launch or to load.
On my older kayak, I noticed that this gets like salty.
Yeah.
Actually, is there anything you can do to like help prevent that? Like maybe keep it elevated? Like what would you recommend?
Best thing to do on any of your electrical connections is to use dielectric grease, and that will help keep the corrosion out, keep the continuity going in the connection, so you don't lose your signal or get a weak signal or have your fish finder start doing weird things. A lot of times if you have problems with a fish finder, it's usually due to corrosion on your wires, which is usually this wire. Because I have to install the fuse here, so I'm going to cut this wire about right here. And I'm going to put the fuse in here, so I'm going to cut about that much wire out. You know what I mean? I'm going to put the fuse in and then keep these straight like that, tight, so it's still one piece of wire, but I got to cut the fuse in.
He's not just going to snip the wire, he's going to snip a segment of the wire, and we're talking about the hot wire, which is the red one, right?
Yes.
The positive wire. And what he's going to do is he's going to cut enough length on that wire to basically compensate for the length of the fuse.
Yes.
And still have the black and the red section kind of line up, so the fuse, so that the connector is not like all off like this, like
exactly.
a longer cable, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
That's what we try to do all the time. Make them nice and uniform.
It's all time to do your hair, Carrie.
I know, hey, we're gonna blow dry the hair, get it all nice and primped up. No, you know what this is.
I do, but tell the audience.
All right, so what we got is we're gonna just a regular heat gun, and then
that does not look like a regular heat gun, by the way. It looks like an industrial heat gun.
Well, it's probably an industrial heat gun, but this is the only heat gun. This is the only heat gun that I've ever really seen, so this is what I call just a regular heat gun. On this, the crimps that the butt connectors that we use at the shop, they have a heat shrink tubing on them, so helps to keep it watertight. So before we do any install and put the wires inside the kayak, we have to kind of set up the wires, and then we heat them up and get them set. Let the gun heat up.
That's so cool. I always thought this was like magic.
Probably not needed to be mentioned, but just make sure that you put the red with the red and the black with the black. The wires, these wires are very small, and in the process of just going and doing your wiring, you could just be like, oh hey, and you have the plug in your hand like this, you're covering the wire and you just stick it in there, and you might get it in the wrong spot. So just line them up before you do it. It can happen. All right, we got those connections done. We're going to get ready to heat this up with the industrial heat gun and seal these heat shrink tubings off. All right, so the next part in the install, what we're going to do is with the Lowrance Hook 2 5 and actually the Lowrance Hook 2 4 series, they do come with a new mount. So the new mount is basically, it's a different style of mount where they have, it's a solid mount on the back with notches in it, and then the actual ram mount, if you're going to use it, it comes in two pieces. So what you're going to have is you're going to have a left and a right side that you have to put together, and they fit together like so, and then you're going to have the ram ball, and the ram ball is going to go in here like this, and then you have two screws that go in from the bottom, and then you have a nut that's going to go on each side in this little hole on each side, and you have to put all this together while it's in this mount. You have to do that in here, and you want to set it. Typically what I like to try to do is, if the fish finder's like this, I try to set it to where it's straight in, and then once it's straight in, because it's a ram mount with the ball and socket, then you can just adjust the angle of your fish finder with the ball and socket. So you can move it like this. You're not moving this mount like this. You're moving the whole thing in this mount. So we're going to see if we can do this. A lot of times they're a pain, but we're going to see if we can do it in one shot.
Coordination and dexterity. Whoa. Andy's standing on 1 foot right now, guys.
All right, guys. I'm okay. Roman will attest. I am now on 1 foot.
Yes. With great balance. That's awesome.
Voila.
Nice.
Now what you have is you have your ram hook to ball mount mounted to the back of the fish finder. And now, like I was saying, is what you're going to end up doing is when you put this in the fish finder like this, your mount's going to sit like that, and when you want to adjust it, you're going to adjust the mount like this. You're not going to take the head unit, which in the past it would have a click adjust, and you could click this. Now it's just moving it like this. Got the hook 2 ram mount mounted to the back of the fish finder, and then we got the ram arm, got the ball into the socket and put it onto the kayak. On the kayak we actually have a ram track ball which can slide up and down on the Hobie track here. I got it positioned, and then I plugged in the wires on the back, and I checked the length to make sure we have enough length to get it to the front spot where the customer wanted. And then we don't have any binding or anything, and then that's going to be enough wire to where if he goes this way with the fish finder, or if he tilts it, you have enough cable that it's not going to bind or pull, and then it doesn't pull in or out of here as well. On the Hobie fish finder install kit, it does come complete with a battery that has the wiring with the plug connected to it, and then on this you do get the battery bracket. This bracket is able to be mounted on the front. If you have a mast, the sail mast post on some of the kayaks, you can mount it to the back of here. There's hardware included in the kit. And the other way, which is what the customer wants to do on this one, is to use the lip here and to install this, basically just dropping this right into the hatch on the front hatch. And this is why we put the hatch in prior for the customer, so he could mount his battery up here. So it gives you a real clean install. It keeps the battery up off of the floor so it's not in water. And then on this, the plug's right here. And then obviously what we're going to do is I'm going to plug this in, but we're also going to tie up the wires to make it so the wire doesn't sit on the bottom deck, and give the customer a little bit of length so he's going to have room to be able to do this plug, to plug it in and unplug it without having to have too much problems with having a too short of a cord. Place the battery inside the front hatch in the battery holder, and now basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to plug the plug together, get that plugged in, and then we're going to go back here. We have arrived at the head unit, which was so far back from this super long Compass Duo tandem. Took a while to get back here. Now we're going to press the power button and hopefully it turns on. And we have power. So a lot of what we do when we do the install is we turn it on, we make sure it powers up, and what it's going to do is once it powers up, it's going to come on with the screen and it's going to tell you, do you want to start the setup mode? As the shop, we never even enter the setup mode because the customer is going to be able to set it up and just go through the whole process. I don't want to start it and stop it and have it affect the unit in any way. So we just turn it on, make sure it powers up. Once this screen goes away and I know that it's going to the proper screen after this, then we power it down, and then we're done with that part of the install. Customer gets it home, he can turn it on, or she can turn it on. See, we're going to get to this mode. It's going to start the setup, and that's where I turn it off, and then the customer can set it up once they're ready to do it.
So next, Carrie's going to go in the hole and zip tie the cables neatly to one of these scupper posts and just make it nice on there so the wires are off the floor.
Yep.
If you're curious about how to configure your Lowrance unit, I'm going to put some videos here that are going to help you figure it out if you just got the Lowrance unit for the first time. And if you want me to make videos on how to set it up, let me know in the comments, and we'll make maybe a video on that where I'm actually on the water and I'll teach you guys how to set one of these units up from scratch, or how to fine tune it to actually see what you're trying to see, because there's a difference between setting it up for shallow water and deep water.
Yes, a lot of different settings on the fish finder.
If you missed episode 1 and you want us to walk you through installing the hatches on your kayak, check out episode 1. I'll put a YouTube card for it right up here. Thanks again to Carrie and OEX in San Diego for hosting us and for showing us and sharing the knowledge. Thank you so much. Also, if you're looking to buy the stuff that we're using in this build, check out the description of this video. It's going to have a list to all of the links to all the things we used. And if you just want to go check out OEX store online, it's called kayakfishingsupplies.com. Big announcement, just so you guys know, OEX in San Diego is now carrying the Spotted Republic flag right here. So if you don't want to order it, you want to see it in person before you buy it, you can go check them out in person at OEX San Diego, their new location in Claremont. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and make sure you leave a comment with interesting things that you saw in the video, or any questions you might have, or what our next project should be for episode 3. Alright, thanks for watching the show, and I'll talk to you guys soon. I'll see you guys in the next video. Woo!